You're listening to Let's Figure It Out by Ad Valorem, where we break down business, finance, and tax without the fluff.
From side hustles to audits, we keep it practical, insightful, and even a little bit of fun.
Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to Let's Figure It Out, the podcast where we tackle real life challenges that business owners face on a daily basis.
Today's topic is one we see so often with clients, making the move from manual record keeping to the digital bookkeeping and accounting.
Sounds simple on the surface. Appreciate it's a little bit niche and might not appeal to our entire audience, but I think it's an important thing and a much bigger shift than people expect. So we brought Alex Black on, who's our Alex.
He is our Alex.
He is our Alex. He is our Director of Client Services. Do you want to give a bit of background about your involvement with the innovation side?
Yeah, so again, thank you very much. I've been with Ad Valorem for 13 years, and through that time we've gone through the whole kind of cloud revolution. The first time round, MTD for VAT kind of necessitated a big move. We're now seeing MTD for income tax do a similar thing, which is forcing people that have never had to hold manual records or digital records before and always been able to get by with manual records, like landlords, to now suddenly have to go on digital to submit their tax returns. And I think we're going to see that kind of second wave of tech adoption from people that they never really thought they had to or wasn't going to impact them, kind of come in. So it's pretty apt.
Yeah. Look, from the outside, it feels like moving from manual to digital should be a pretty straightforward, no-brainer thing. So why do so many businesses hang on to kind of manual processes for so long?
It's a real mixture. I mean, the normal sort of starting one is people genuinely don't like change, right? People, they've got some sort of theory. Is it cost? Is it process? Is it like, I just don't have time to work out what that's going to do. A lot of people know it's probably going to be better, will allow for automation, it will allow for some benefits, but they don't have the time to invest in getting it put in. And it's probably a really good concern to have, because actually poor implementation can lead to a worse system than staying where you are. So unless you're going to do it properly and properly implement it and invest a bit of that time up front, actually it could lead to a worse position. I think people kind of know that. Yeah, they're your main ones really. Time investment, just fear of change, or like they see themselves as non-techie. And then the cost other side of it is, a lot of these things come with a monthly subscription cost, whereas they might have bought a red book 20 years ago and they've almost near the back of it and they want to get the next few pages out.
I mean, I used to score cricket books, or use cricket score books, so I've got plenty of those up in the loft. So, how much does habit play into it?
A massive amount, I think. Especially when you're looking at people within a finance function, they tend to be more habitual. One of the things that makes them very good at their job is being able to do the same thing over and over again consistently. And when you threaten that and you kind of say, well, this bit needs to change, I think there's a kind of, how is that going to impact the other parts? How is that going to play into other spaces? Am I still going to be able to control that? Or am I still going to be needed as well? Right? There's a big part of fear of redundancy in the finance industry. If you look, I think there's a website that's like, will a computer take my job? And accountants and bookkeepers are like 98% apparently, which I completely disagree with. But I think there's a fear of, well, if I put this in and it creates loads of extra time, what am I going to do with that extra time? How am I going to spend it?
I think a lot of people as well are reluctant to be forced into doing something. So I think part of it is a bit of a rebellious kind of notion as well, of going, actually, if I'm being told to do something, I'm definitely not going to do it. Can't relate.
You've got a successful business, right? Because if you're doing well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. If it's going to cause you more problems, more headaches, I think a lot of people probably think, well, what's the...
And then you've got to look at the opportunity, right? So a lot of the stuff we're talking about here is the risk, and if they don't know what the opportunity or the upside of it is, or it feels like it's being forced upon them. So one of the issues you have with MTD is it's government policy enforcing change on people in their businesses when they maybe don't have like the headspace or the capacity to do that, and they resent that change, and they only look at the cost and the negative of it and don't look at the opportunity of what it can offer them. And so it's trying to make sure that you see both sides of it and see the value in implementing a digital system, and a lot of the time it is going to be time saving, it is going to be better outcomes, right? More repeatable, more controllable outcomes, and then insight and access to information. If it's digital, you can visualize it in multiple different ways. And if you've got different people within the organisation that view things or take data in differently. Once you've got that digital, you can put it in a graph, you can put it in a table. You can KPI some stuff, and you can make it quite easy to digest. Where if it's in a book or on a spreadsheet, arguably you can, but it's a lot more challenging to do so.
So ultimately, what does that translate to? So
better insight, right? Having a better understanding at any given time. So let's say you go full digital, you've got bank feed into your system, you've set up a bunch of rules, so all of the things that happen the same every single month, they automatically get processed. For everything else, using data capture, so you take a picture of a receipt, it goes into the system works out what it is.
Yeah.
Any given day, as long as those systems are set up and maintained properly, you can see what your profit and loss is right now. You can see what your balance sheet looks like right now. You can see who owes you money, and how long they typically take to pay, and who you owe money to, and you can start to have a much broader picture, an idea of your financial health than if it's in a bit of a book. You kind of know it's there, and you're like, I could work out who owes me money, but they'll probably pay me next week. And you have less insight and less information at your fingertips to impact change in your business.
And I suppose one of the other things, if you need to present that information to investors, to whoever, banks for lending, if you need to present that, you can have it quick to, it looks like you're on top of your business.
Yeah, and I think that's the other side. A lot of people are expecting you to be digital now. This isn't the start of a digital revolution. We're kind of partway through it, and this is the next frontier. And banks are expecting you, if you're running a business, so if it's a sole trade or a property portfolio, they view it all like they view, say, like a limited company. They expect you to have that agility to be able to give them a P&L or a cash flow forecast quite quickly. And if you're kind of going, I'll get it to you next month, that's not going to be good enough.
No.
You need to be able to be agile and getting that done quite quickly, and it's more challenging to do with manual records.
So what are the top excuses you've heard?
I don't have time for that, or now is not a good time, and then you start to try and go through that client. Well, when is a good time? Like, well, next month's quarter end, and then after that, my VAT return, and then it'll be year end before we know it. So, and then you're like, well, there's always going to be another thing, right? There's always going to be another financial process that's in flight.
Priority,
You've got to prioritise it, right? And then cost. Again, for a lot of people that have survived on legacy systems, that have gotten by with books or pieces of paper, that haven't necessarily been forced into this change, it does pose, it's not massive cost, but £10-15 a month every month can quite quickly build up for someone that's got a 2-property rental portfolio.
And I think on that, like, when people look to implement and digitalise their accounts, their bookkeeping, I think a massive thing is to shop about for the correct software, because when you do then choose to invest the time to implement that change, there's nothing worse than implementing, let's say, Free Agent, and then a year and a half down the line realise Free Agent doesn't actually do what you need it to do, and you need to move to something like Xero. I think that initial fact find and understanding what your requirements will be by having a conversation with your advisors and your accountants, and then implementing it rather than just trying to do a quick fix, plaster on the issue job.
Right tool for the job is a must, right? So I was with the Free Agent guys the other day, and we were looking at some of their landlord products, and actually for certain landlords it's going to be an amazing product. And if I gave them, say, a Sage file or a Xero file, it would be overkill. Like, they don't need that. And they'd be like, there's all these buttons I never use. What's that for? And vice versa. If I put the wrong person into a software, they're like, well, it doesn't do this, or it won't allow me to automate or do these parts of it. Again, it's going to feel clunky, or it's going to feel wrong. So 100% right tool for the job. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of system, especially when you bring landlords into the mix. They don't run their business the same way a lot of trades or limited companies will, so it's got different requirements. You might have multiple people involved that have to do multiple tax returns. So you could have, say, 5 properties within a family, all with different ownerships that not necessarily got the same structure in any 2 places. That's quite a complex thing to try and build into a system, whereas on a piece of paper, it's relatively easy to go 100, right, 30 if it goes there, 20 if it goes there, 50 if it goes there.
Do you tend to find what's the sort of demographic of, I guess, businesses that you tend to find on a still manual?
Mass generalizations, right? But you tend to find there'll be maybe more lifestyle,
too much, but more
lifestyle businesses, right? So more kind of we're doing this to facilitate the lifestyle we want, or it's not.
So they're kind of going, as long as we've got cash in the bank, sort of thing.
They're not necessarily looking at taking the world on, or growing, or scaling. So a lot of the selling points of those other softwares that we've talked about already, they're like, I don't need that, I don't want that. tend to maybe find they're maybe of an older generation where they've gone through a lot of change in their time of running that business, and they almost look at it as like, is this another flash in the pan? And there'll be a new software next week or a new something, and so they're kind of maybe a little bit more jaded, or they've not got that complex of a business. They're consultants, dental associates, people that ultimately have like 12 sales invoices a year and maybe twice as many purchases or bills. They're like, why do I need to input that all into a system when it's 30 pieces of paper that I just hand to my accountant and he turns it into numbers?
Which is an option, to be honest. You know, your accountant can hold the license and they do it. You'd have to pay them for it. But if you don't want to do it, then I suppose that's I
suppose the government change is going to force them to do that 5 times a year instead of once. And I think that's where a lot of these businesses are going. They don't necessarily understand why. And they don't like it.
Yeah, cheers, HMRC.
And they're doing it from a
We're the communicators. We're the communicators. We're the bridge gap.
The amount of times you're like, why are you guys doing this? Like, they're not my rules.
Not my rules. Don't make the rules.
But you know, it is an opportunity, and from HMRC's perspective, they saw a massive drop in fraud and errors when they did it for VAT. So they saw a significant reduction in errors on the VAT returns. They're assuming they're going to get the same success in income tax. So, as taxpayers, you know, that live in the country, it should benefit us all if they can reduce errors, reduce fraud, reduce abuse, because it means more money goes back into our tax system that should do. But it is a bit painful on us as the taxpayers that have to do it and report that information in.
Okay, so we've spoken about some of the reasons why people might choose to digitalise. I think any business owner, the primary question that they're going to ask is, what are the hidden costs?
Yeah, so I think you touched on it earlier on. Business owners might think if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but they don't realise that it is a bit broken and it is hurting their business. So you're seeing increased time to do things, right? So they're inefficient. You're seeing errors made where, you know, transposition errors maybe in numbers, you write it down the wrong way or putting something in the wrong column. That doesn't happen when you're using, you know, OCR technology that's reading a receipt. You know, it's always going to go in the same space. Compliance issues. So, you know, we're now seeing more regulators and more compliance-based, like MTD for income tax. You have to comply now. So the hidden cost of not doing it is fines and penalties and all the other fun stuff that goes along with that. I think finally is the kind of opportunity cost or the loss of staff. So I did a webinar with Silverfin not long ago, and we're talking about growth takes talent and talent wants tech. You know, if you want the best staff members, you want to attract the best new talent, they're going to expect you to have a certain level of tech within your business. And if they rock up and you're like, here's a piece of paper and a pen, crack on, they're quickly going to start looking for another opportunity. So if you really want to attract and retain the best people, you need to give them the best tools to work with.
And I suppose for the single staff company sort of thing, owner managed company that's maybe a landlord or whatever, what's the kind of hidden costs for them? Is probably not a lot, really.
If they're their own people, it gets me weekend back. So, you know, one of our other episodes, we talk about the hidden cost of being the boss, and in that we talk about kind of giving up your weekend for admin tasks. Well, what if you didn't have to do that? Right? What if you were able to get your Sunday afternoon or whenever you do your admin or you catch up on your billing, and we gave you that back? Or you didn't have that really stressful time where your accountant's like, your tax return's due next week, I need everything for the whole year, and you're trying to dig it out of everywhere where you've put it over that time, and it's all in one space, and you just go, there you go, done.
I think a lot of people potentially who have done manual bookkeeping previously, I think some of the kind of bugbearers that I've heard about is a lot of people feel like they need to then go back and check the data that's been digitalised. So, you know, if you're writing in a book, you know, it's your handwriting, you know what you meant when you wrote it. I think when you're trying to upload things into a system, a lot of business owners then end up going back through and going, actually, that's been pulled through wrong, that's wrong, that's been assigned to the wrong nominal code, etc. So I think also one of the hidden costs is that those teething pains that you are going to have to probably get through and overcome of actually developing a trust with the system.
A big part of that is seeing it as the new system and not like your system, my system. So some of the worst times I've seen that is when like someone in the business is pushed for digital and someone in the business doesn't want it, and it becomes like your system, my system. And it's like they take no ownership or investment in making that system work. They kind of just want to go, see, it doesn't work, and you go, that's not helpful, right?
Certain industries are particularly bad at that as well. I mean, like accountants, unfortunately, we're not. But a lot of accountants still use Excel because they love Excel. I love Excel. I absolutely love it. I will still do little bits and bobs on it, but it's not the main bulk of what I use. I don't use it for reporting or anything like that. But
yeah, if you've not got that buy-in across the board, especially from like owners, managers, and it's almost like, well, your system doesn't add back to mine.
Yeah,
that's not helpful. What you need to do is get into it and understand why, because a digitized system should do the same thing over and over again. So if it's not, it's probably just been set up wrong.
Yeah.
And I think if you can then invest that, hey, that's not what I've got, let's work that out. Once you've worked it out, it will then be right going forwards. Yeah. And if you take it, bite by bite, you'll get a more reliable, more efficient system in your business.
Yeah, I think I've seen quite a few people use a system, it not work once, and they go, well, mine worked better. So I
don't
can relate
trust
to that. Yeah, and I'm probably guilty of doing it a couple of times myself. So it's probably one of those things. So if a business is ready to make the move, what would be your next steps? What would be your summary of what they should do?
So find the right tool, right? So we talked a little bit earlier on about how some tools are going to have way too much in it for what you need, or some might not have enough. Some depend on who you bank with, some depend on what industry you're in. So do a bit of digging. If you're not sure where to start, speak to your advisor. So it's kind of number 2 is get the right team. And that's an external and internal team. So who's going to be your advisor? Who's going to help you on this? So your accountant normally. Who's going to be your internal champion? So it might be your financial controller. It might be a more junior member of staff that's more tech enabled that can help really shine in that space and gives them an opportunity to step up into it.
Yeah. And some autonomy, I guess, for them.
Yeah, it gives them some autonomy and an opportunity to succeed, I suppose. And then support them and go through that process. Like we just said, understand it's not going to be perfect out of the box. Yeah. Or it might not. It might, but it might not. And you've got to build that system. So just like you did with your own manual process, whatever it might be, I imagine you didn't just pick it up, start, and it was perfect straight away. As you went through, you found better ways to do things or ways to do it differently that was more consistent. You're going to see the same in a digital system. It's not a silver bullet. It's not perfect. But if you've got the right tool and you've got the right team and you go through that process of learning and iterating, you'll get a really good system that works.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it personally. I mean, we've used Xero for a long time, so we're pretty adept with Xero. But we've seen it with our CRM, Salesforce. That's taken. It's very customizable, which is the benefit of it, but it's very customizable, so things can go wrong. But that's a process, right? So we over-engineer it, under-engineer it. You can do all kinds of things with it. But it took us a good 2 years to get the data out of it, and now it's at a point where it's really delivering some benefit, significant benefit for us. So yeah,
I think it's just trusting the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And would you say it's better to phase it in or go all in at once, or what?
I think it very much depends on your circumstances. There's some industries or some clients I've worked with where there's not going to be a benefit of running it simultaneously or phasing certain elements. You kind of, what they've got isn't going to be fit for purpose going forward. You just need to bite the bullet and get on and do this. And there's other ones where maybe they're a little bit more nervous, or maybe they can't afford for it to drop down. So if they're in a higher regulated industry, they need to make sure they've got the data that might be called on for them. So they do run simultaneously, but I would say have really clear milestones and have a really clear cut-off point, because otherwise, and I have seen this happen, you get clients that go digital and then still run their cash book 3 years later, and they're consistently like, oh, does it match up? And they've got those two systems and there's no efficiency saving for them. They're not really yielding the benefits. They've actually just made it back and they're running two systems. So have really clear cut-off if you are going to run simultaneous systems.
Okay, so before we round things up, let's do a quick fire round, as is tradition with this podcast. Alex, one reason to go digital today, not next year?
Access to information. So if you're, I'd say, a plumber, you're out on a job. I've seen people where they quote it up and then they go back and they send the invoice when they get back. The client accepts it. You can do it all from your pocket. You whip your phone out, bang a quote out. Client gets it instantly, accepts it. You can turn that into an invoice and they can pay it all within 5 minutes. So that kind of speed of getting that information transferred and also getting that cash in your pocket is way higher. Get it done as quickly as you can.
Nice. Biggest myth?
It's going to solve all your problems. It's like going to work straight out of the box and do exactly what you need it to do. It takes a bit of effort. It takes a bit of setting up.
What's the first step for someone that's feeling a bit overwhelmed about making the move?
Talk to your accountant. You pay us for a reason. We're your financial advisor for a reason, and we spend a lot of our time looking at these softwares, working with them, understanding what businesses they're good for and what they're not. So there's no point in having us there and not using us. So reach out, speak to your accountant. They'll have a few options for you. They'll probably have a pretty good idea of what's going to be best for your business already. They might already be using the system for you inside their own practice and you don't even know it. So reach out, talk to the experts and get their advice.
Thanks, Alex. Hopefully today's chat has proved the point that moving digital does not have to be as scary as what some people perceive it to be.
And if you need help, just ask.
Yeah.
So that rounds up this episode of Let's Figure It Out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much.